Ambassador Krelthak of the Hegemony Council had spent 3 standard years studying human behavior, and he was no closer to understanding them than when he had first arrived on Earth. The Deathworlders were a contradiction that defied every model of civilized development. They possess the most advanced military technology we've encountered, he reported to the Council via quantum transmission. Yet they use it primarily for defensive purposes. Their weapons could devastate entire star systems, but they spend more resources on medical research than warfare. Through his embassy window, Krelthak watched human children playing in the gardens below. These were the offspring of the species that had single-handedly held off the Zephyrian invasion fleet, yet they played games that emphasized cooperation rather than dominance. Most disturbing of all, he continued, they actively avoid conflict even when victory would benefit them significantly. Yesterday, I witnessed their military leaders decline an opportunity to claim 3 disputed systems because, and I quote, the political instability would cause unnecessary suffering to civilian populations. The Council's response was immediate and skeptical. Ambassador, are you certain these humans aren't simply concealing their true aggressive nature? Krelthak considered the question he had been asked countless times. Honored counselors, I have observed them for 36 months. I have seen their leaders in private moments, accessed their classified communications, and studied their historical records. The answer is both simple and terrifying. They avoid war because they understand it too well. Part 09. The Understanding. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief military strategist, found Ambassador Krelthak waiting in her office when she returned from the morning briefing. The alien's bioluminescent patches were cycling through patterns she had learned to recognize as deep curiosity mixed with unease. Ambassador, what can I do for you? Dr. Vasquez, I require clarification on a matter that troubles my government, Krelthak said, his translator rendering his formal tone into crisp English. Your species possesses overwhelming military superiority, yet you consistently choose diplomatic solutions over conquest. This behavior is unprecedented. Elena leaned back in her chair, considering her response. After 3 years of careful cultural exchange, she had grown to respect the ambassador's genuine desire to understand. Ambassador, let me ask you a question. In your species' history, what happens after a great victory in war? The victor claims territory, resources, and subjugates the defeated population. This is the natural order. And how long do those conquered populations remain subjugated? Krelthak paused, his patches flickering. Until they become strong enough to rebel, typically within several generations. Elena nodded. Exactly. Your species, like most in the galaxy, view war as a temporary solution to permanent problems. You fight, you win, you control for a while, then you fight again when control inevitably breaks down. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Humans learned something different. We discovered that every war creates the conditions for the next war. Every conquered people becomes a future enemy. Every act of aggression generates a reaction that may not come for decades, but will come. The display showed centuries of human conflict, each war leading inexorably to the next. We avoid war not because we're peaceful by nature, Ambassador. We avoid war because we've become very, very good at predicting its true costs. Part 10. The Revelation. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called after reports reached them of humanity's latest diplomatic intervention. The Velthari Empire had been preparing to invade the Crystalline Consortium, confident that their superior numbers would ensure swift victory. Instead, human mediators had somehow convinced both sides to sign a comprehensive peace treaty within 72 hours. How? Demanded Supreme Commander Kexvel. The Velthari had been planning this invasion for 5 cycles. Their entire military structure was committed to conquest. Ambassador Krelthak stood to address the assembly, his understanding of human behavior finally complete. Honored Council, the humans didn't prevent the war through military intervention or superior negotiation. They prevented it by showing both sides what would actually happen if they fought. He activated a presentation that had been provided by the human delegation. Using their historical databases and predictive modeling, the humans calculated the exact progression of the Veltheri crystalline conflict. They showed the Veltheri Empire that their swift victory would actually result in a 70-year guerrilla war that would bankrupt their economy and destabilize their entire region of space. The council sat in stunned silence as the projection displayed decade-by-decade predictions of resource depletion, civilian casualties, and social collapse. They showed the Crystalline Consortium that their defensive strategy would evolve into an offensive campaign that would make them the aggressors in the eyes of neutral systems, ultimately isolating them diplomatically for generations. Krelthak's patches pulsed with what the assembled aliens had learned to recognize as profound respect. The humans don't avoid war because they fear it, counselors. They avoid war because they can see further into the future than any other species. They have weaponized prophecy itself. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter, but Krelthak continued. Every military engagement the humans have fought has been studied, analyzed, and fed into predictive models that can forecast the consequences of conflict with terrifying accuracy. They don't need to conquer us. They can simply show us exactly what our victories will cost us. Supreme Commander Kexval's voice was barely a whisper. Are you saying they can predict the outcome of any war before it begins? Not just the outcome, Commander. They can predict the second war that victory in the first war will cause, and the third war that will result from the second, and the fourth that will follow the third. They have turned warfare into mathematics. As the implications sank in, the Council finally understood why humanity's offer of peaceful coexistence was less an invitation and more a gentle warning. The humans weren't avoiding war out of principle. They were offering the galaxy a chance to avoid the futures they had already calculated. And every single one of those futures ended with humanity standing victorious, not because they were stronger, but because they were the only species that had learned to fight wars across centuries instead of years.